Hey everyone, welcome back to that 90s pod.
Glad to be here.
Today we're going deep on the Oslo Accords.
Oh, yeah, big one.
But before we get started, I gotta remind y'all, hit that subscribe button
Yes, please do.
and tell your friends about the pod, especially the ones who are totally obsessed with the 90s.
Yeah.
Like we are.
All right, let's dive in.
Okay, so Oslo Accords, huge moment.
I think most people know the basics.
Yeah, the handshake.
The hope.
The hope.
And then, things kind of falling apart.
Yeah.
But what we want to do today is look at the cultural impact.
Exactly.
Like the ripples beyond just the headlines.
Totally. It's about the whole vibe of the 90s.
Yes.
How did this event shape movies, music,
Right. Absolutely.
even like everyday conversation?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So to get that, we got to rewind a bit.
Okay, so
Early 90s.
early 90s.
World's kind of like
Yeah.
coming out of the Cold War.
Blinking in the sunlight.
Yeah. And the Israeli-Palestinian conflict had been going on for decades.
Oh, yeah, decades simmering.
Okay, so decades of conflict.
Right.
Plus like a major global power shift.
Yeah.
Sounds like a recipe for like more conflict.
You could say that, and there's definitely a lot of that. But the interesting thing that the end of the Cold War actually opened up some space for new approaches.
Okay.
Like the U.S. became a major player in trying to mediate.
Okay.
And there was this feeling.
Yeah.
Maybe, just maybe, things could be different. Yeah.
And then September 13th, 1993.
Rabin and Arafat.
Shaking hands.
Clinton beaming.
Image burned into everyone's memory.
Yeah.
What was it like to experience that?
Electric.
Yeah.
Like this gasp of hope across the globe. Like you couldn't escape it.
Really?
It was on every TV.
Yeah.
Every newspaper.
Yeah.
For a brief moment.
Yeah.
It felt like anything was possible.
That's powerful.
It was.
Was it feeling?
Yeah.
Was it just like a political thing?
No, not at all.
Or is it bigger?
It was bigger.
Okay.
The Oslo Accords became this cultural touchstone. Think about the film Paradise Now.
Okay. Yeah.
It came out a bit later, but it captured that post-Oslo feeling perfectly.
Yeah, like the hope, but also the
hope?
tension.
Yes.
Like the agonizing complexity
Yeah.
of trying to make peace when violence feels
inevitable.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And Paradise Now didn't shy away from that.
No, it didn't.
Like it really showed.
It forced you to look at it.
Yeah.
The human cost.
Yes.
The fact that there are no
easy answers.
Easy answers.
Right.
Exactly.
And we need to remember that.
We do.
As we unpack the legacy of the Oslo Accords.
Yes.
It wasn't just treaties and negotiations.
Yeah.
It was real people.
Real people.
Trying to build a future in a place with so much pain and mistrust. Yeah, it feels like the Accords tapped into this deeper yearning for peace.
Yeah.
Not just in the Middle East, but globally. Like if peace was possible there, maybe it was possible anywhere.
A powerful message.
Yeah.
It was.
And that message resonated through pop culture, too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Music, art, literature.
Everywhere.
Everything seemed to be about coexistence.
It's like
and reconciliation.
The Oslo Accords weren't just a news story.
It was a phenomenon.
They were a cultural phenomenon.
Yeah.
Artists, musicians, writers, they were all trying to process this moment, explore what it meant for the future.
So this event, so specific to one region, somehow became about this universal longing for a better world.
Absolutely.
It's amazing.
And that's what's so fascinating about the Oslo Accords. They weren't just about Israel and Palestine. They became this global symbol of hope.
Wow.
This catalyst for conversations about conflict resolution
Yeah.
way beyond the Middle East.
Before we get into that broader impact,
Sure.
quick reminder to our listeners.
Yes.
If you're loving this deep dive so far,
please
make sure you're subscribed.
Yes.
And sharing the episode with your friends.
Tell everyone.
All right, let's get back to it.
Okay.
That's global ripple effect you mentioned.
Yeah.
Where do we even begin to unpack that?
Well, think about it this way.
Okay.
The Oslo Accords became a model.
Okay.
A framework for how to approach peace negotiations in other conflict zones.
So even though the Accords themselves didn't lead to lasting peace between Israel and Palestine.
Right.
They offered a roadmap for other regions.
In a way, yes.
Wow.
Suddenly you had diplomats and negotiators looking at the Oslo model and saying, okay, maybe we can apply some of these principles to our own situations.
That's pretty amazing. Yeah. So the impact wasn't just about what happened in the Middle East.
No.
It was about changing the global conversation around peace building itself.
It shifted the paradigm.
Wow.
It demonstrated that even the most entrenched conflicts could be addressed through dialogue and compromise.
And it gave people hope.
And maybe, just maybe, that's the most important legacy of the Oslo Accords, even in their ultimate unfulfillment.
Yeah.
They reminded us that hope is a powerful force.
Yeah.
One that can inspire change even in the darkest of times.
All right. That's a powerful note to end on for part 1.
Yeah.
But before we go, I just have to ask.
Sure.
What are some of the lesser-known details about the Oslo Accords?
Oh, there are so many.
That you think might surprise our listeners?
But that's a story for part 2.
Oh, come on.
So stay tuned. You know, it's funny, when you dig beneath the surface of these big historical events, you often find these hidden currents that are even more fascinating.
I like that. Okay, I'm intrigued.
Like, take, for example, the location of the negotiations leading up to the Accords.
Okay, where did they hammer out these world-changing agreements?
Yeah, not Jerusalem, I'm guessing?
No, not Jerusalem.
Not even close.
Okay.
Picture this: snowy landscapes.
Oh, wow.
Fjords.
Really?
Diplomats huddled in cozy cabins, hammering out the details of what they hoped would be a lasting peace.
Norway. Seriously?
Yeah.
Wow.
It all boils down to neutrality.
Okay.
They needed a place far removed from the media frenzy and political pressure cooker of the Middle East.
Makes sense.
Somewhere they could hash things out in secrecy.
Away from prying eyes?
Away from prying eyes.
Secret meetings in snowy Norway.
Exactly.
High stakes, intense pressure.
High stakes.
Did they at least get to enjoy some good Norwegian waffles?
Hopefully. But in all seriousness, this clandestine aspect of negotiations is a great example of how even the most public events often have these fascinating backstories.
Speaking of backstories,
I'm
dying to hear those lesser-known details.
Oh, yes.
You teased at the end of the last episode.
Yeah.
You said there were surprises.
Oh, there are always surprises.
Okay.
When you start digging into history, for instance, did you know there was this informal group of negotiators dubbed the Oslo Group?
Oslo Group?
They operated kind of behind the scenes.
Oh, like a...
away from the official channels.
Secret society of peacemakers.
Yeah, you could say that.
I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
It was a mix of Israelis and Palestinians.
Okay.
Academics, intellectuals, former officials.
Okay.
All deeply committed to finding a path to peace.
Wow.
And they met in secret.
Really?
Away from the glare of the media, laying the groundwork for what would eventually become the Oslo Accords.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
It really highlights how sometimes the biggest breakthroughs happen outside the formal structures.
They do.
Through quiet collaboration.
Right.
And a shared belief in a better future.
Absolutely a shared belief.
It's a reminder that change doesn't always happen in the spotlight.
It doesn't.
Sometimes it's about the quiet conversations.
The quiet conversations, the unseen efforts of those working tirelessly behind the scenes.
It makes you wonder how many other untold stories are hidden within those historical moments that we think we know so well.
History is full of these hidden layers, these fascinating anecdotes that add nuance and depth to our understanding of the past.
Yeah, and they often reveal those universal human elements.
Yes.
The desire for peace.
The desire for peace.
Yeah.
The willingness to take risks.
Right.
The courage to hope, even in the face of immense challenges.
Okay, I'm officially hooked.
Good.
On these behind-the-scenes glimpses.
Yeah.
But let's shift gears a bit.
Okay.
And talk about the aftermath.
Okay.
Of those iconic handshakes on the White House lawn. The global reaction, the sense of optimism.
The optimism.
The hope.
Well, maybe we should talk about the challenges, too.
Right. It wouldn't be a true deep dive if we didn't acknowledge the complexities.
Of course.
Because while the world erupted in celebration, the path to peace proved to be anything but straightforward.
So talk to me about those challenges.
Okay.
What were some of the roadblocks that emerged?
Well, for starters, there were deep divisions.
Okay.
Within both the Israeli and Palestinian camps.
Okay.
Not everyone was on board with the peace process.
Right.
Some viewed it with suspicion, Others with outright hostility.
I mean, that makes sense.
Yeah.
We're talking about decades of conflict.
Decades.
Deeply ingrained mistrust.
Yeah.
And a lot of emotional baggage on both sides.
Yeah.
How could everyone just suddenly embrace the idea of peace?
Exactly.
Right.
And those internal divisions made it incredibly difficult to implement the agreements on the ground.
Oh.
So even though there was this global sense of hope on the ground, things were much messier.
Much messier, yeah.
And those tensions eventually boiled over.
They did.
Violent outbreaks.
Political assassination.
Moments that shattered the fragile hope
that
had been so carefully cultivated.
It's heartbreaking to think about how those hopes for a lasting peace ultimately unraveled.
But it's important to remember that even in their unfulfillment, the Oslo Accords had a profound impact.
Yes, they did.
They shifted the global conversation.
Absolutely.
They inspired a generation of activists.
They did.
And they demonstrated that even the most entrenched conflicts could be addressed through dialogue.
It's like even though they didn't achieve their ultimate goal, they planted seeds for future peace efforts.
Yeah.
Maybe even for a different way of thinking about conflict resolution.
Exactly.
And that's something we'll explore further when we dive into the cultural impact of the Accords in Part 3.
But before we wrap up this part,
Yeah.
just a quick shout out to our awesome listeners.
Yes.
If you're digging this journey back to the 90s
Yeah.
and unpacking this pivotal moment in history,
Please.
make sure you hit that subscribe button.
Yes.
And share this episode with your friends.
Tell everyone.
We'll be right back with the final part of our deep dive
Yeah.
into the Oslo Accords.
All right, welcome back to the final part
The final part.
of our deep dive into the Oslo Accords.
Okay.
We've covered a lot of ground, secret meetings in Norway,
Right.
to the complexities that ultimately derailed the peace process.
And as we wrap up,
Yeah.
I think it's crucial to move beyond
Yeah.
simple labels of success or failure.
Okay.
The legacy of the Oslo Accords is far more nuanced than that.
You've said it before, and I think it's worth repeating.
Yeah,
Peace is a process, not an event.
absolutely.
Even though the Accords didn't achieve their ultimate objective,
Right.
they had a ripple effect that's still felt today. The Oslo Accords became this cultural touchstone, a catalyst for a wave of artistic expression that grappled with the complexities of the conflict.
You know, when we talk about the 90s, we often focus on the music, the fashion, the pop culture trends.
Sure.
But it's important to remember that this decade was also marked by these intense global events.
Absolutely.
Like the Oslo Accords.
Yes.
That really shaped how people saw the world.
Think about the films that came out of that era. Paradise Now is a prime example.
Yeah.
It forced audiences to confront the human cost of the conflict.
Yeah.
See beyond the headlines and into the hearts and minds of those living in the shadow of violence.
I remember watching Paradise Now and feeling this gut-wrenching empathy for the characters.
Yeah.
It wasn't about taking sides.
Yeah.
It was about understanding the impossible choices people were forced to make in a situation.
Yeah.
Where everyone felt like a victim.
Exactly.
Right. And that's the power of art.
Yeah.
It can bridge divides, foster empathy.
Yeah.
And spark difficult but necessary conversations.
Absolutely.
And it wasn't just film either.
No.
Music literature, even fashion.
Yeah.
The Oslo Accords seemed to permeate every aspect of culture.
It was like this collective yearning for peace, found expression in all these different creative outlets.
It's fascinating how the Accords also fueled a surge in activism.
Oh, yeah.
Especially among young people.
Especially young people.
Yeah, it felt like a whole generation was galvanized by this moment.
Yeah.
There was a real sense of hope that things could be different.
Yeah, that peace was actually achievable.
Student groups.
Yeah.
Peace organizations.
Right.
Cross-cultural exchange programs.
Absolutely.
There was this explosion of energy and commitment to building a better future.
And even though the peace process ultimately stalled, that energy didn't just disappear.
Right.
The seeds planted by the Oslo Accords continued to sprout in different ways.
And in what way?
The conversation about peace building shifted.
Okay.
It became more nuanced.
Okay.
More focused on addressing the root causes of conflict.
So maybe the Oslo Accords weren't about achieving some grand overnight transformation.
Yeah.
Maybe it was about starting a conversation.
Yeah, planting those seeds of hope
Yeah.
and inspiring a generation
Yeah.
to keep working towards a more peaceful world.
Yeah.
Even when it feels impossible.
And perhaps that's the most enduring legacy of the Oslo Accords.
I think so.
The reminder that peace is a journey,
Yeah.
not a destination.
It's about the constant effort.
Yeah.
The willingness to keep talking.
Right.
To keep listening, to keep believing in the possibility of a better future, even when the path forward seems uncertain.
It's a powerful message.
Yeah.
And one that feels especially relevant today.
It does.
With so much conflict and division in the world.
It's a reminder that we all have a role to play.
Yeah.
In building a more peaceful world.
Absolutely.
It starts with empathy.
Yeah.
With understanding, with the courage to engage in those difficult conversations, even when it feels uncomfortable.
Well said. And on that note, we'll wrap up our deep dive into the Oslo Accords.
It's been a journey.
It's been an emotional journey.
Yeah.
But an important one.
It has been.
Thanks for joining us on this exploration of a pivotal moment in history.
And remember, the conversation doesn't end here.
It doesn't.
Keep learning.
Yes.
Keep questioning.
Yeah.
And keep striving for a more peaceful world.
That's it for this episode of That 90s Pod.
See you next time.
We'll catch you on the flip side.
Bye.
For another blast from the past.
All right.
Until then, stay curious, stay informed, and stay rad.